The Supergirl movie hitting theatres on June 26 is based on one of the most critically acclaimed DC comics of the last decade. But here's the thing most people don't realise. The comic it's adapting, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is not a traditional superhero story. Kara Zor-El goes on a murderous quest for revenge. She's not saving a city or fighting a supervillain. She's hunting down the man who killed a little girl's father. And she's prepared to cross lines that Superman never would. And the way the film is set up, this could be one of the most unique comic book movies we've seen in years. So in this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know before you see it. Her origins, the key characters, the story it's based on, and how it connects to the wider DC universe. So let's get straight into it, starting with Kara herself. Kara Zor-El is Superman's cousin, but unlike Kal-El, who was sent to Earth as a baby and raised by the loving Kent family, Kara's experience was completely different. She was a teenager when Krypton was destroyed. She remembers her home planet. She remembers her parents. She remembers watching everyone she knew die. In this version of the story, Kara was raised on Argo City, a chunk of the planet Krypton that survived the destruction. Her father, Zor-El, played by David Krumholtz, was a scientist there. Her mother, Allura Inzi, played by Emily Beecham, raised her. But eventually, the people of Argo City died off one by one, and Kara watched it happen. This is the key difference between her and Superman. Kal-El lost a planet he never knew. Kara lost a planet she lived on, and she watched everyone around her die. James Gunn has described her as more jaded, more hardened, and, his exact words, pixie-ish but very attitudinal. Both Gunn and director Craig Gillespie have actually referred to her as an anti-hero, which tells you the tone they're going for. I think this is a really important thing to understand going in. If you're expecting the hopeful, earnest Supergirl from the CW show, Melissa Benoist's version, that is not what this movie is. Gunn has explicitly said he wanted to distance this interpretation from that one. MillyAlcock's Supergirl is rougher around the edges. She's been through more. And one of the most interesting character details, because Kryptonians heal and gain their powers from yellow suns, Kara actually likes to party on planets with red suns, where she can get drunk. It's a small detail that tells you a lot about who this version of the character is. But Kara isn't on this journey alone, and the character who joins her is actually the heart of the entire story. I'll explain why in just a moment. The plot kicks off when Kara meets Ruthye Marye Knoll, a young girl played by Eve Ridley. Ruthie's father, Elias Knoll, was killed by a man named Krem of the Yellow Hills, who's the leader of a group of space pirates and human traffickers called the Brigands. Ruthye rescues Kara to help her track Krem down and get revenge. And this is where the Woman of Tomorrow subtitle comes in. The entire movie is structured around this revenge quest. Kara and Ruthye, along with Krypto the Superdog, travel across the galaxy hunting Krem. Matthias Schoenaerts plays Krem. And if you've seen him in films like The Old Guard or Rust and Bone, you know he brings a real intensity to his roles. He's not going to be a cartoonish villain. What makes this revenge story interesting is that it's personal for both Kara and Ruthye. Ruthye wants justice for her father. Kara, as I mentioned, has her own history with loss. This journey isn't just about catching a bad guy. It's about two people processing grief in very different ways. Ferdinand Kingsley plays Elias Knoll, Ruthie's father, and Dermot Murtagh plays Drom Braxton, Krem's second-in-command among the Brigands. Now, this might sound like a straightforward revenge story, But there's one character who completely changes the dynamic of the film. And it's someone you've definitely seen in a DC movie before, just playing a completely different role. Jason Momoa is playing Lobo in this film. And before you ask, yes, this is the same Jason Momoa who played Aquaman in the DCEU from 2016 to 2023. But this is a completely new universe, and he's playing a completely different character. For those who don't know Lobo, he's an alien mercenary and bounty hunter from a planet called Zarnia. In the comics, he's violent, crude, and often played for dark comedy. He's one of the most popular anti-heroes in DC Comics, and fans have been wanting to see him on screen for decades. I think Momoa is basically perfect casting for this. He has the physicality and the charisma to pull off a character who's both threatening and entertaining. What's interesting is that Lobo apparently crosses paths with Kara during her revenge quest, and I'm really curious to see how their dynamic plays out. You've got Kara, who's on this deeply personal mission, and then Lobo shows up, a bounty hunter who's probably just in it for the payday. The contrast between these motivations could create some really compelling tension. Krypto the Superdog also appears in this film, returning from his debut in Superman. If you saw that film, you know that Krypto was one of the standout elements, and having him along for this journey gives the film some emotional grounding. Because Krypto is generally loyal to Kara in a way that the other characters aren't necessarily. But here's what I think is the most important thing to understand before you see this movie. And it's about the source material. This film is based on the 2021 to 2022 comic book miniseries Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, written by Tom King with art by Bill Chris Evely. And I want to talk about this because understanding the comic really helps you understand what the filmmakers are going for. Woman of Tomorrow is widely considered one of the best Supergirl stories ever told. It won critical acclaim across the board. Tom King was actually one of the writers working on the overall story plan for the DCU when James Gunn and Peter Safran took over. So the comic's DNA is baked into the entire universe they're building. In the comic, the story is narrated from Ruthye's perspective. The film may or may not keep that framing device, but it's worth knowing because in the comic, we see Kara through Ruthye's eyes, which gives the story a mythic, almost legendary quality. Visually, the comic is stunning. Bill Chris Evely's art has this sweeping, painterly quality. The film's cinematographer, Rob Hardy, who shot Mission Impossible Fallout and Ex Machina, has said they wanted to capture the same epic sci-fi western feel. Now, Anna Noguelia wrote the screenplay, and here's something that should give you confidence. James Gunn actually moved Supergirl up to be the second DCU film purely because Nogue's script was so strong. It wasn't originally planned that way. That's a pretty significant vote of confidence. The film is directed by Craig Gillespie, who you might know from I, Tonya and Cruella. He has a real talent for complicated, morally grey female protagonists, so this is right in his wheelhouse. Now, there is one question a lot of people have been asking. How does this connect to Superman? David Corenswet appears as Superman in this film. We don't know how large his role is yet, but it's been confirmed. So if you haven't seen Superman from last year, you might want to check that out. It's the first film in James Gunn's DCU and sets up a lot of the world that Supergirl exists in. Supergirl is the second film in the DCU, part of what they're calling Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. The fact that it's only the second film tells you how much faith the studio has in this project. I should also mention, Sasha Calle played Supergirl in 2023's The Flash, which was part of the old DCEU. She said publicly that she was heartbroken when she found out she wouldn't be returning. But Gunn made the decision to go in a completely different direction. This is a clean break from everything that came before. The DCU is effectively a soft reboot. Some concepts carry over, but the slate has been completely reimagined. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is one of the flagship projects of this new era. So, what should you actually expect walking into the theatre? This is not a traditional superhero story. It's a space western revenge story. It's been described as true grit in space. And honestly, having read the comic, that's a pretty accurate comparison. Kara is the Rooster Cogburn figure. Rough, uncompromising, carrying a lot of pain. And Ruthye is the young girl who hires her. The film is 108 minutes long, with a budget of $170 million. The score is by Claudia Sarn, and the film was shot at Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden in England, plus location shooting in Scotland. It premieres in Brooklyn on June 22nd and releases wide in the United States on June 26. And given Gunn's comments about this being a hardcore take on the character, and the fact the plot revolves around a murderous revenge quest, I wouldn't be surprised if this pushes the boundaries of PG-13. So that's everything you need to know before seeing Supergirl. I genuinely think this has the potential to be one of the most unique comic book films we've gotten in years. It's not trying to be an Avengers level event. It's telling a very personal story on a grand cosmic scale. If you enjoyed this video, I'd also highly recommend checking out my full review of The Mandalorian and Grogu. It's the same kind of deep dive analysis, and I think if you're a fan of how I approach these films, you'll really enjoy it. I'll link it on the end screen, so make sure you check that out next. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my review of Supergirl when it drops. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now!